All right, let's talk about all the books that I'm hoping to read in the month of April. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Theo. Thanks for hanging out with me today while I talk about my TBR for the month of April. I have a stack of books here that I'm excited to talk to you guys about, and I'm excited to finally get to read. A lot of these have been on my TBR for a long time, and on that note, I'm going to be participating in the TBR Blitz Readathon hosted over at the Keymark Discord. I'll leave a link in the description. It's a great community of people, a lot of authors, a lot of other content creators. Go check them out. It's a good group of people. It's all fun, and it's really structured in a way to help people get through their existing TBR and not have to break it in order to participate in a readathon. All of the prompts are like, choose a book that's been on your TBR for more than a year, choose a book that's been recommended by a friend that you haven't been able to get to, choose a new addition to your TBR, that kind of stuff. The prompts are amazing. There are extra points you can get. It doesn't really matter how many books you read or what, how many points you get. By the time you see this, it may have already started. It's taking place from April 1st to the end of the month. And I'm going to do my best. I was actually supposed to be a captain. I was super excited, but I pulled out because I wasn't able to 100% commit to being the best kind of leader and championing, a winning team. So I'm just going to participate like I'm hoping a lot of you guys are as well. And we'll see how many we get through. It's just for fun, great community. Go check them out. And if you're participating, I'm curious to hear what you guys are reading. But without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about the books that I'm going to be choosing. And all of these are going to be hitting the prompts. And in fact, a lot of them are going to be bonus points as well. The first one has been on my TBR for a long time. This one was bought for me by my wife in like December 2020, I think for Christmas 2020, when I first started being part of the booktube community on that side of the lens. And I just wanted to pick up a bunch of books that I heard were really good. And this was one of them that continues to get recommended to me. A bunch of people told me recently, just put down what you're reading and read this one. You won't regret it. And I'm actually going to be reading it alongside Alex over at Tall Guy Reads, because this was his patron pick for the month. This one is The Lies of Loch Lamora by Scott Lynch, book number 1 in the Gentleman Bastard series. I'm going to give you a little bit of a blurb here. It says, an orphan's life is harsh and often short in the mysterious island city of Camor, but young Loch Lamora dodges death and slavery, becoming a thief under the tutelage of a gifted con artist. As leader of the band of light-fingered brothers known as the Gentleman Bastards, Loch is soon infamous, fooling even the underworld's most feared ruler. But in the shadows lurks someone who's still more ambitious and deadly. Faced with a bloody coup that threatens to destroy everyone and everything that holds meaning in his mercenary life, Loch vows to beat the enemy at his own brutal game or die trying. That sounds pretty sweet. I know that it's sort of like it's a heist. It has really clever, witty dialogue. It takes place in sort of like a Venetian style canal, beautiful architecture type of environment, back alleys, dim lanterns, stuff like that. That's kind of what I imagine. I feel like this is going to be right up my alley. It has a blurb by George R.R. Martin that I've just discovered this year. I love A Song of Ice and Fire. I'm feeling like this is going to be a really fun read for me. A lot of people that I know have read it really enjoy it. And I actually own the second one as well. And I just picked up the third one on sale for like $5. So there's there's no excuse to not read this one. And why not read it alongside a really good friend of mine? We're going to read it this month. Hopefully we continue with the series. It's not huge. It's like 500 pages. So thinking to start the month off with Lies of Loch Lamora, finally. The next one is one that's been on my radar for way too long. I've wanted to read this author forever, and this book in particular. This book is kind of his most famous piece of work, or the one that really kind of got the whole thing started for him. This was gifted to me by a really good friend of mine, Matt on Books, who's also now a co-runner of the Grimoire Discord. I'll put the link in the description. This one is Legend by David Gemmell. I recently just put a picture of this as, I'm going to read this next month on a Facebook group, and so many comments, people chimed in saying, one of my favorite authors, like best book, epic, like amazing. People were posting pictures of their David Gemmell collection. People were saying it's just an incredible, heroic fantasy, classic fantasy, and some of the best in the genre, and really kind of, served as inspiration for a lot of authors that I really like. So I'm super excited to try this one. And it's been on my TBR for way too long. So I'm happy that the readathon is going to get me to read this one. It's going to knock off a couple prompts, and it's only like 325 pages. Legend is is the first and most famous novel by David Gemmell, published in 1984. It's the classic Draenei novel, and it's a powerful tale of courage and sacrifice in the face of overwhelming odds. The stories of his life are told everywhere, but the grizzled Draenei veteran has spurned a life of fame and fortune and retreated to the solitude of his mountain lair. This was also written at a time, I think, when David Gemmell thought he had or did have cancer, and apparently it comes through in this book. So I'm really curious to get into like the tone of this book and figure out why Gemmell is such an inspiration for a lot of authors I enjoy, and how, I haven't read classic fantasy in a while, like true heroic classic fantasy. I don't think that there's a whole lot of swearing and gore and that kind of stuff. I think this is like true classic fantasy in the 80s, and I'm here for it. I'm super excited. Thank you, Matt, on books. I appreciate it. And I'm going to read this in April as well. I'm especially excited about this one because the author is a jiu-jitsu black belt. And as you guys may or may not know, I train jiu-jitsu as well. I'm currently a blue belt. I've been doing it for a couple years now, and I absolutely love jiu-jitsu. And I've been looking for something. I've been looking for some fantasy that infuses real martial arts and like MMA into the fantasy genre and into the plot and story in a way that isn't cheesy. There are other authors that are trained in martial arts. Fonda Lee is one of them. And so the fight scenes and the choreography and stuff is really well done. But this book is, it has martial arts at the center of it. So I'm so curious how this is going to go. The story sounds really intriguing. In a world long ago ravaged by war, the nations have sworn an armistice never to use weapons of mass destruction again. Instead, highly skilled warriors known as Grievar Knights represent their nation's interests in brutal hand-to-hand combat. Murray Pearson was once a famed knight until he suffered a loss that crippled his homeland, but now he's on the hunt to discover the next champion. In underground and ruthless combat rings, an orphaned boy called Kigo is making a name for himself. Murray believes Kigo has what it takes to thrive in the world's most prestigious combat academy, but first, Kigo must prove himself in the vicious arenas of the underworld, and survival isn't guaranteed. This is exactly my book. This was, like I said, originally self-published. It got picked up, it got revised quite a lot. So the e-arc that I have is now a completely kind of revamped version of this book, and I'm super stoked to try it out. It comes out June 13th, and I'm hoping to have Alexander Darwin, in fact we've chatted, to come on to the channel and talk about books and jiu-jitsu and how this all came about. And so I'm fitting this book into April so that I can have time to enjoy it before we potentially talk and let you guys know what my thoughts are. So I've been waiting for a book like this for a long time that puts martial arts at the forefront in a way that's not hopefully cheesy. It sounds like, in a world where you can't use weapons and everyone just has to fight each other, that sounds pretty sweet. So I'm going to read that in April as well. The next one is actually going to hit a couple prompts. It's going to hit continue a series. It's also going to hit the second book in the series prompt. This one, I read the first book last month and I absolutely adored it. It was an easy 5 stars for me. And on the topic of martial arts in fantasy, this one's urban fantasy. This is the continuation of the Greenbone saga. This is Jade War. Book number 2 by Fonda Lee. I'm super excited. By the way, shameless plug, my buddy Alex at Tall Guy Reads is actually interviewing Fonda Lee very soon. So maybe I'll put the link in the description or info or whatever. If you haven't already joined the Grimoire, go ahead and join it down below and you'll get up to date with all this stuff because there's so much happening over there. It's a good community and we're doing some cool things. So Alex is interviewing Fonda Lee because he's basically famous now. And I'm super excited because I got really invested into these characters and this story and had such a blast with this one. This one is all about warring clans and clan families, basically the magical ability that's inherent in some of these families to use jade and basically enhance their abilities. And it's all that politicking, it's all that warring and the factions and just the family drama really at the heart of it. There's so many themes, the characters are compelling. Like Jade City was amazing, and actually Alex did a really good review of the whole series. Jimmy Nuts over at the Fantasy Network did a really good review of Jade City, I believe, on its own. So I'm super excited to read this one. I can't wait, and honestly, I almost didn't put this on. I didn't want to leave the series, hanging for too long. I really wanted to continue, and it was really hard not to just pick up the second book right after I finished the first one. I was just reading some big ones, Ship of Magic, Storm of Swords. I had big books going on, and so know what, I'm just going to put this into next month, and really, I can't wait. I'm going to enjoy this one immensely, and I'm looking forward to that Fond du Lis interview as well. Hopefully I can read Jade Legacy, which wraps up this trilogy the month after, because apparently I won't be able to wait, and it's a really, really good conclusion. Now, I was also going to read another book, and this is kind of an informal, buddy read or group read along or whatever on the Grimoire Discord. Again, I know, shameless plug, I'm sorry, but there's a bunch of people reading it, including Alex from Tall Guy Reads. We were going to read it all together, and this one is The Ember Blade by Chris Wooding. Now, this one is the second book, The Shadow Casket, has recently come out either a month or two ago. And this one has been on my TBR forever. It was sold to me as kind of an homage to classic fantasy and all the tropes and stuff we like, with awesome world building and magic and found family or whatever, like good relationships and stuff, but with a nice kind of modern spin, and for fans of modern fantasy as well. So it really straddles that line pretty well. Apparently it doesn't do anything like super groundbreaking, but everything it does just fresh enough, but it's also very familiar, and apparently does everything really well. So I'm super excited to try this one. I don't know if I'm going to fit this in. What I'd like to do is prioritize the other books, Greenbone Saga as well, and continue in that series, particularly the E-Arc, so that I can, chat with Alexander Darwin and get a little bit of martial arts in my fantasy that I've been craving. And if I have time, I'm going to switch to this one. This one is probably going to roll into the following month, which is why I'm not 100% counting it, and I don't think I'll be able to count it for the readathon, but this will be after I read the ones I just picked up. This is probably the first one that I'll reach for, so that I can at least participate with that discussion and maybe catch up when the group decides, if they decide, to read The Shadow Casket. I'll go ahead and read the back of this because it sounds pretty sweet. It says, Aaron has lived by the rules all his life. He's never questioned it. That's just the way things are. But then his father is executed for treason, and he and his best friend Cade are thrown into a prison mine, doomed to work until they drop, unless they can somehow break free. But what lies beyond the prison walls is even worse. Rescued by a man who hates him yet is oath-bound to protect him, pursued by inhuman forces, Aaron slowly accepts that the rules are not there to protect him or his people, but to enslave them. A revolution is brewing, and Aaron is being drawn into it, whether he likes it or not. The Ember Blade is the key, the sword of kings, the Excalibur of his people, but it's locked in an impenetrable vault in the most heavily guarded fortress in the land. All they have to do is steal it. That's like my third time reading that blurb, and every time I read it, I get more and more excited. The issue with this one is it's like 825 pages. So again, I doubt that I'll be able to, with my schedule, fit this in completely to hit a readathon prompt. This one will be read in May or April, depending, and the other ones are going to be more of the priority. As usual, I have one or two that are floating that I might switch in if I'm, mood reading a little bit. Like I have The Way of Adan by Philip Chase on deck, and I don't know, am I going to read that? I don't know. I have a novella. Novellas don't really count for the readathon for this particular one. So I don't know, I'm bouncing around, but the ones that I've mentioned are the priorities, with Emberblade kind of fitting in somewhere near the end, if not rolling into the next month. So that's kind of my TBR. Maybe let me know if you guys are participating in the readathon. I'd be really curious if you are, which team you're on. I'm on Kayla's team, Kay's Hidden Shelf, the Golden Bards. It's a pretty stacked team, to be honest, but all the teams are stacked, so we'll see how that goes. Let me know what you guys are reading in the comments below. I'm curious, and I hope you guys have a good reading month. I hope you have a good rest of the day and rest of the week, and I'll catch you soon on the next video.